She's the reigning Miss Eco International, whose impact goes far beyond the crown. Today, we step past the makeup, the pageantry, and the spotlight to get to know the real Alexie Brooks, the advocate, the athlete, and the woman inspiring others to embrace their unique personalities. Hi, Alexie. It's a beautiful day.
Good morning. Beautiful day.
Yes, indeed, because you're here. You know, when I heard you won, I was really rooting for you during Miss Universe Philippines. And when I heard you won Miss Eco International, I told Voltaire we need to have her on the show. So thank you, Voltaire, for sending Alexie here.
Thank you, Serbi.
Congratulations on winning Miss Eco
Thank
International.
you so much.
Finally, you won a crown. What was going through your head when your name was announced?
Actually, it was like my grandma's birthday, like 4 days before the competition. I didn't have parents growing up, and my grandma raised me, and she passed away like a few months ago. So every time kasi it's her birthday, I would always have a competition, and I would always actually win. So this time, parang takot ako na parang maybe I won't win, and she's not here. So when I actually won, I cried because somehow I gave her that gift, even if she's no longer here.
Such a beautiful gift.
I know. Parang lucky charm mo yung lola mo.
Yes,
no?
opo.
Yeah. So you were born in Lebanon. Did you spend much time there before moving to the Philippines?
Actually, no. All I remember is when I was a little kid, but at least when I had my memory, I'm already here in the Philippines. So
Okay.
literally, my grandma raised me. Like both of my grandparents, but sadly, my grandpa left a little bit earlier. So it was just my grandma growing up. But
Oh, that's beautiful. But you know, let's talk about something that at least sports people would remember. Of course, you were part of the UAP 2022. You were an MVP.
Yes.
Especially sa track and field, doing honestly the hardest event there. Heptathlon. It is so hard. For those who do not understand how hard that event is, it is 7 events in one. All right, tama no? 7 events in one, and then also represented the Philippines in terms of in Southeast Asian Games in Vietnam back in 2021. We take a look at yung athletic background mo. How did you transition into getting into beauty pageants, into doing something a bit different compared to that?
Just a bit.
Just a bit, you know, competing pa rin.
I think as growing up, about the pageant side, I was around 15 or 13 years old when I opened the TV and watched Miss Universe, and the very first person I saw was Venus Ra.
Oh.
And I grew up discriminated because of my skin tone, and she was somehow closest to the skin tone that I have when I opened the TV. And at times, I was very happy. And I told myself that maybe one day I'll make it there also. Like I'm doing something that people are actually looking at me more than my skin tone. And I realized at a young age that I had a talent in sports because it wasn't like a happy story, like other people found out they had a talent. I usually get bullied. So from the gate of my school going home, I would usually run because the kids would actually throw stones at me and chasing me. So up until one day, there was a teacher who saw me run and she said, "You're very quick. Can you do track?"
Yeah. Wait lang. Yung issue yung na-notice ng teacher, basta mabilis ka, and not that people were throwing stones at you.
Maybe she noticed that too.
I think the teacher was like, wait, she's being bullied, but wait, ang bilis niya.
But she's much faster.
Stop doing that.
issue later.
Wait lang, ang bilis na to.
But yeah, I think it started from me, running away from my bullies.
Yeah.
Up until I started running and realized that, maybe I had a talent. So it took me a while before I started loving it. Kasi usually I got bullied for it. So I was running away from these people up until I realized at a certain age why run away from people who hurt you when you can actually chase after a dream? Well, I'm running. So it's a different perspective to it. And we were very poor. Like I remember back in the days that the only viand we had was probably tuyo or like some suka or whatever. And I didn't have a choice but to work hard. Like women like me, we went through so much in life that we were strong before we were powerful. And it takes another woman to empower us before we realize that we are capable. And that was my grandma. So up until I got into high school, when I joined my first pageant, I was 12 years old, and then I won. And then the next year, I joined sports, and I lost many times, but I competed my first palarong pambansa when I was on my grade 9, and I won silver. And I said, okay, what will I do next year? And I came back again next year, and I said, I will win gold. And that year, actually, I won gold. And then senior high happened, and then I said, okay, anong gagawin ko? Kasi I had gold already. And then I said, you know what, let me break the record. I checked the record and I actually broke the record on my grade 11, So when I was on my grade 12, sabi ko, ano pang gagawin ko? So I talked to to my coach. I think my last competition for Palaro was in Davao.
Yeah.
So I asked coach, sabi ko, coach, aside from high jump, I started with high jump. It was only in college when you can play heptathlon.
Yeah.
And high schools, wala pa.
Yeah.
So I started high jump. So I told my coach, what can I do pa? Sabi niya, you know what, you're good at hurdles. Let's try. So my last Palaro, I did hurdles, I did high jump, I did long jump, and I did 2 relays. And I finished with 2 golds and then 2 silvers on my last Palarong Pambansa. And that's when I had scholarship here in Manila, and I also had scholarship in El Paso and in Budapest. But I really couldn't leave my grandma because she was all I had. And she, like basically, ako, yun lang meron din siya. So parang, it's hard for me to leave knowing that I probably won't see her for a while. So I studied in NU. I graduated last year, just when I was joining Miss Universe Philippines. I was balancing both. It wasn't easy at all. I didn't have to sleep. But at least it was a proof to people that if you really want something, you can actually always make time and make things happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with the no sleeping part when you join pageants.
Insane.
But you keep mentioning your grandma, and it's obvious from your social media and the way you talk about her. You guys were really close. I'm also a Lola's girl like you, so I live with my Lola now. But I want to know, how was it growing up with your Lola, and maybe what values did she instill in you that you're using up to this date?
You know, I was so happy and I was so lucky that even though I didn't have no parents growing up, my grandma never made me feel na parang may kulang in my life. Like back in the days where we was really poor, like extremes, that wala nga pang gasto in school. Even the food that you have to put on the table, wala nga. So sometimes I would know that she's lying, that she would say that she ate already, but I know she did not. And what can I do as a child? I can't do anything. So the only thing that I promised her is a better life and a better future. So ever since I was a kid nga, losing or giving up is never an option. When you came off the rock bottom, there's only one way to go, and it's basically up. So everything that I do, regardless if it's sports or pageant or whatever I want in life, I dedicate it for her. And you know, she instilled so much wisdom and love in me that regardless if I didn't have my parents, yun nga, sabi niya, like parang, you have me, and you have a lot of people out there that's willing to give you that love. So when she passed away, even though I know that I still have so much love to give to her, and she's no longer here, so instead of me focusing on that, I give it to other people. And whenever I get time to go home in Iloilo, I make sure that my first stop is to visit her in the cemetery, because I mean, I love her so much. I love her. What's funny, kasi when I won Miss Iloilo, that photo of us that went viral, the very first person I looked when I was up in the stage, and the media was like, wait, I need to look for my grandma. So everyone was waiting up until she went up there, and then I give her a kiss, and I said, Grandma, we made it. And then when we got home, she said, I was so shy. Sabi ko, bakit? Sabi like, di ko naintindihan kung bakit I was the first person you were looking up in the stage when you had everyone waiting for you. And that's when I realized that she did not understand how much I love her so much. But yeah, I mean, I would trade anything, I think, for my grandma. Like, I miss her so much.
Well, you know, they say they never really leave us, right? As long as
They're
they are
just there.
here in our hearts, they're always there. But you know, looking back from the time when you were a seller in the market,
Yes,
di ba? You were selling sa market sa Iloilo,
Iloilo.
and then you became a decorated athlete, and now you have a crown to your name. If you know, were given a chance to go back and have a conversation with your younger self, kasi syempre you faced so much adversity, you were running away from bullies, and then now you're running forward and facing the challenges head on. If you can have like a conversation with your younger self, what would you tell?
You know, most
The
of
young Alexie.
most of the time we have things to say like motivational. I think for me, I'm just literally gonna say keep going. Like you have so much ahead of you, you just don't know it yet. Definitely, for sure, you're going through a lot of rocky roads ahead, but just move forward. Like my advocacy is abanse babay, and it's basically letting women go forward and further in life. So it's an Ilonggo term, abante in Manila or in Tagalog, but Ilonggo it's abanse. My grandma would always say that, you know, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down, it doesn't matter if you need to crawl, walk, or run, just abanse, just move forward. So I tell myself abanse.
Yeah, I want to build on that because you mentioned something that I really liked a while ago. You were strong before you were powerful.
Of course,
and when you talk about things like that, when is it more of making women rather realize na they do have that inherent strength, because it is something inherent in women that sometimes that they do not realize that they have.
Yes, it is true. When I talk about strong, it's when you went through so much in life that you did not have a choice but to go forward, to be strong and to fight for things. But when you talk about a powerful woman, it is when a woman got empowered by another woman that they become powerful as a whole group. And I think that what happened to me, like at some point of my life, I was alone. I needed to survive. I needed to go forward. And later on, I met so many people, especially women, who've not only inspired me, but changed my life. And it's the same thing that I'm doing to the people out there that's watching, to the little kids out there that felt like they don't belong or they don't fit in the standard. And later on, you know, it's such a good reminder to people that as long as you're genuine, as long as you stick to your core, and you're out there, give hands or hope to other people, whatever you want, you can actually get it.
Alexie, you know, you're so amazing. I literally have no words but to just commend you, and I love your story.
Thank you so
But, you know, you mentioned earlier, every year when you're in high school, you want to get silver, gold, what's next, what's next? So I want to ask you, what's next now that you've won Miss Eco International?
Completely honest, ever since my grandma passed away, I think the hardest battle or competition for me was Miss Eco. It was the fact that she was no longer there. It was when people would say that, Alexie, you actually looked like you were enjoying, you had fun. But that was I think, basically the biggest struggle for me. Because physically I was fine, but of course emotionally I was still grieving and so on. But I know that my grandma is watching. So when I won, literally the very first thing I asked myself, it's what's next? Because there's no time to stop. Life keeps on going every single day. And I realized that I realized the importance of family. And I realized the importance of being there with other people to make sure that my life is out of service with other people. I would love to write a book or something like that, but definitely something bigger, but something that out of service. I want to be out of service, but yeah.
Alexie, I feel like you never stop doing anything. But what do you do when you just have nothing to do? I'm so curious. I feel like this girl is always abundant.
Actually, I love watching movies, and I do write poetry.
Ooh.
I'm a bit creative, so it's either I write, I watch movie, or I sing a little. I would write a little song, because my grandma, she used to sing, and I never met my dad, but he was a musician, so I think it runs in the blood, I'm not sure.
Do you have a piece of poetry that you memorize right now that you've written that you could share with us right before we go?
Not really a poetry, but I think, I think I wrote a week ago or something like that. I was pretty
let's
busy.
hear it.
But that's something like today I try. When I usually make my coffee black, but today I added milk just to add a little bit of fun in the day, something like that. I forgot the whole sentence out of it, but something like that.
We'll get you to post that soon. But then thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
It's
you.
so fantastic
Thank
having you
you.
here
You're
with
such
us
a ray
here
of
today.
sunshine, and you definitely made our studio more beautiful.
Salamat.
That
Thank
was
you.
Miss Eco International 2025, Alexie Brooks.
Thank you.